Line's good.
Never on!
Whoa.
Hard! Hardly.
Come on, Brent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
The hair high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham, Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Sean, we're back.
Yeah, it's been a long break.
We love curling so much, I guess. We've come to the curling club. There are people yelling.
A lot of yelling tonight.
Yeah, it's almost as if it matters.
Almost. It doesn't.
But it doesn't.
No. So we're back at the Ottawa Curling Club, getting set for the next stop in the season of champions this year. The Women's World Championship is going to be out there in beautiful Prince George, British Columbia, which means that the world's best are descending on the left coast.
Well, that's pretty generous to call it the left coast.
That's left of here.
Yeah, it is. It's not even close to the coast, though. Prince George, home of the University of Northern British Columbia.
Yeah.
I took a class once, Sean, that was taught by an instructor from there, and he was pretty good.
Yeah, the great Ben Bryce teaches out there,
Ben
too.
Bryce. Is he still there?
I assume so.
Oh,
People
what a
don't
guy.
move that. People don't move that much.
No, that's right.
In
Ben,
the Canadian history circles.
Yeah, Ben is a gem. He's a good guy. If you get a chance or speak Spanish, I think read his book about
There you go.
Spain.
Yeah.
People, Argentina. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he'll be out there at the Women's World Championship, which to this point has not been changed at all. There's talk about international sporting events around the world, certainly soccer events where they're going to play with no fans. The tennis event out in Indian Wells, California, that has been canceled. So
That's right.
there is talk, or there has been talk about changing up the schedule or the procedures. So far that hasn't been the case. If you're out there in Prince George, the players are probably going to be a little more cautious about signing things, and like if you hand them a pen, maybe they won't. They might have their own pens for them to sign stuff, and certainly handshaking, all that kind of stuff. Just stuff to be aware of in these settings. But the event will go on as planned as of this recording, and it's got 13 teams get to participate in the World Championships, and the playoff format has not changed, even though we don't like it. 6 teams make the playoffs, top 2 get byes into a semifinal. The page does not exist for the WCF anymore.
Yeah, it's what we call the NHL playoff system, where more than half the teams make the playoffs. So,
Except for less than half the teams make the playoffs in this.
you're right. It's pretty close, though, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's too many teams
yeah.
that make the playoffs. But that's the format. This is the way it is. So we've divvied up the 13 teams, Scott, into 3 different tiers of teams. So we're going to go through based on the tier that we've identified. So we're going to start with the teams that we don't expect to challenge for the 2020 Women's World Curling Championship.
come on, Sean. What do you call that?
We're
tier?
calling that the Thanks for Coming tier. These are teams that we've seen before, we are somewhat familiar with, and certainly the fact that the past couple years we've been paying more attention to the European Championships has helped with this tier, I think. So this year, let's start with the Danish team, skipped by Mathilde Hals, which I believe is how you pronounce that. But they are coming into the 2020 Women's World Championship representing Denmark. Not much of a resume this year on the World Curling Tour.
No, not at all, Sean. 18 games. All these stats are from Curling Zone, by the way, just in case anybody wants to dispute them. That's fine with us. 18 games, 6 wins, 12 losses. I believe they're the only team in the field that's been outscored. 5.81 points per game, 4, and giving up 7.56. Pretty bad hammer efficiency at 29%. Also a bad steal defense, 23%. So not the numbers you're looking for a team that's going to contend, which is why we've got them in this grouping.
Yeah, but they had a good enough showing at the European Championship that they qualified.
Right.
So I mean, it's not a situation where they didn't win anything to get here. They had to win stuff to get here. So they're in. But yeah, they're a team that this is just a straight round robin in the World Championship. If they go 1-11, 0-12, right? I don't think anyone's going to be shocked by that.
No, probably not. Probably not.
So that let's move on then to the German team. This is skipped by Daniela Jentsch. They have been around before. We're familiar with them. They have had some success at this event in the past. They have had more success at the European Championships, but against got a team that coming into this we would not, or at least I think this is the team that you kind of wondered about when I put them in this tier, that you thought, well, maybe they could be a little more successful than I'm giving them credit for.
Yeah, they're not a bad team. I would say this team's sort of comparable to a team like New Brunswick at the Canadian Championships, where they come and it might take them a day or two to get their legs under them, but then they'll give people a game. They were bronze medalists at the Europeans 2 years ago, so not a utterly dismiss this team, or even a case of we just don't know enough about them,
right?
Which there's a couple teams that we're going to talk about, but yeah, so I thought, well, maybe that's a little too low for them, but then I looked at the rest of the field, and the field is pretty good this year.
Yeah.
For this event, so playoffs should be their goal.
I think so.
Whether they'll be able to attain it, I don't really think so. 33% hammer efficiency is not what you're looking for in a team that is going to contend for this kind of an event. So that's the number that I'm sort of keying in on, is hammer efficiency, because to me it's a real indication of how much you can control the game, and to a certain extent they're not doing that.
Right.
They've scored more points than they've allowed per game, so that's good. They're 44-34 on the year. Lots of games played. But yeah, that's sort of my takeaway.
Okay, let's move on then to the final team in the pool. The Italians team is skipped by Veronica Zappone, the 2019 European Championship B-level winners. Who come through here. We've seen Veronica Zappone in this team at World Championships in the past. Again, not a team that's really going to blow you away. They're 24-17 on the season. They score a bunch and they give up a bunch, right? They score nearly 8.5 points, give up almost just under 6.5. So, maybe this will be a Suzanne Burt type situation where they'll just have really fun games. Suzanne Burt will probably wins a little more than this team will, but maybe some high scoring games, a lot of interesting ends at the very least.
Yeah, for sure. They beat some kind of difficult teams to get here through that Euro Bs, and they also played in the World Qualification event. So you have to beat some teams. They beat Team Turkey to get that final spot. It's not like they have no wins on their resume, but you're right, they're not likely champions for sure. But similar to the German team, playoffs, is a goal to set, and whether you get there or not, it's pretty unlikely. But I don't know what I'm saying. I just lost my train of thought.
You said that they can try to make the playoffs, but they won't.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
basically what you said.
We're here to make bold statements.
Yeah, so that is the Thanks for Coming division. 3 teams that we don't have high expectations for.
Did we write down order of merit numbers for these teams or no?
We did not. I'm going based purely off of my expectations.
Right on, because as we know, order of merit
Is a little skewed, especially when you get down into the teams that don't play a lot, that those numbers can be really thrown off. So
sure.
So let's move into the next tier of teams. This is the tier we're calling the You're That Team from That Place. These are teams that we recognize, we know them, but we don't expect them to be serious contenders to win. Playoff threats,
Yeah.
but maybe not threats to win the overall event.
Yeah, I would say all these teams can make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so. So let's start with the Americans, skipped by Tabitha Peterson. This, of course, is Nina Roth's team. She is off doing the family thing.
Yeah, had a baby not too long ago.
Yeah,
maybe
so-
a couple months. So
Yeah, so very exciting times.
Good times
for the Roth family, and Tabitha Peterson has stepped in to that skipping role and has done a very good job. Of course, they won the American National Championships. They're probably the biggest other contender is Jamie Sinclair in the women's field for the Americans. So
Well, it's definitely the other contender.
yeah, okay. So a big win there for Tabitha Peterson, and now she gets her first crack at the full-time skipping gig at a world championship.
First crack at a full-time skipping gig in
Yeah.
her life. Never skipped before, Tabitha Peterson. Let me read to you, Sean, the winning percentages over the last 4 years for Team Roth.
Okay.
2017, 64% winning percentage. 2018, 60% winning percentage. 2019, 56%. 2020, 73% winning
Wow.
percentage. So, is it too early to say that this team is better without Nina Roth?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, we're here to we're here to make waves.
Yeah, probably. They've certainly been on a really good run and played really well. I mean, those numbers, that includes like Curling Night in America, though, right? Which is, I mean, they set that up for the Americans to win.
Hey, I don't know, man. Pretty
No,
good.
they
They're-
do.
Well,
I mean, they
okay,
definitely do.
Yeah,
that.
yeah. But I'm looking at their numbers. Like they're scoring 8.65 points a game, giving up 5.91. Still, kind of a lot of points to give up. But
Yeah.
43% with their hammer efficiency, 56% with their force efficiency. Put those numbers together, and you're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. How many
Yeah.
games have they played?
59, according to Curling Zone.
Okay.
So they've been in playoffs at Spiel at Slams. They basically ran the table at Nationals. I think they beat Sinclair in the round robin, or maybe not. So they had 1 or 0 losses
Yeah.
there. They're really on fire. Aileen Geving is back. I believe she's throwing lead stones and holding the broom for Tabitha, and her sister Tara's playing with them. Becca's moved to throw third stones. They seem to have found something that really works for them, and I think this team will make the playoffs at Worlds.
Okay, so you think I have them in the wrong tier?
Oh, well, I don't think.
Because I have 6 teams in the top tier, and there are 6 playoff spots.
Yeah, there you go. I do think you have them in the wrong tier.
Okay. So we'll see who you want to bump out when we get to that top tier.
Yeah, we will.
All right, let's move on. Next team in this middle tier. This is going to be the Chinese team, skipped by Han Yu. As far as I know, Scott, I think this is the first time we've seen them at a world championship. Chinese curling, of course, is really ramping up in advance of the 2022 Winter Olympic Games in Beijing. They want to have contenders in all sports, certainly, and curling is no exception to that. Bingyu Wang had the great run in the early part of the century through the 2010 games. I believe she won a world championship in the lead up to those games.
She did.
And now, Chinese curling has gone through a bit of a reset, and here it's Han Yu and this team that we'll see if they can take that position going into those 2022 games, because obviously Chinese curling really wants a feature team that they can focus on to.
Yeah, and as long as we're not all dead in 2022, I think they have a good chance. The things that have been rumored about Han Yu is that she's curling's next superstar.
Okay.
All the Canadian coaches that have gone over and seen her play come back raving about her. We've heard all the hype, and now it's time to see it in action and see what they're able to put together at this level. Played 59 games on the year, according to our stats here at Curling Zone. 64% winning percentage, so pretty good. Hammer efficiency is only 0.32, and that's something I'm going to look for. But their force efficiency is 0.62. So
Wow.
So that's like a very good ability to force your opponents. They're not able to capitalize on the hammer as much. So that might be holding them back a bit. But a lot of times when we see young teams come up through junior, they are more defense oriented.
Yeah.
So
Especially, I think that we found that with some of the Asian teams as well, is just those young teams in particular are playing really defensively when they start out.
Right.
As they learn the game, as they learn, different ice conditions, all that kind of stuff. Of course, famously, Heather Netowin was super pissed at the World Championship because she's like, they don't want to play. And but that, I mean, it's we've talked about it on the show before. It's a good strategy, right? When you're behind the eight ball a little bit, if you're playing teams that maybe have more experience or maybe just frankly are better, play it open, play it defensively. We saw it at the Brier, Jamie Murphy. That's how he played all week, especially in that game against Brad Gushu. So, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and this team also, I believe they won Pacific Asia Championships. Maybe a bit of a surprise, but Rocks Across the Pond can tell us about that. They're sort of the next team, and I don't know if I ever told you this. We played that Chinese women's team, Bing Yuang, when I lived in Vancouver. We played on a cash spiel there, and they just kicked our ass. And
well, I hope so.
But it was before they had been, even to the World Championships.
Okay.
They were just in Vancouver training, needed a spiel to go in. We were like the employees of the club sort of team.
Yeah.
And oh man, it was a shit kick. and if this team's any at all similar to that team, in development stage, I think the future is very bright, and this will be a good learning experience.
Yeah, this will certainly be one to watch, I think, for the at least in Canada here with TSN when they play Canada. That's the only time we're going to get to see them on TSN. But on the World Curling feed on YouTube, you'll get other games in that. It'll be an interesting team to track over the course of the week.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the events they've played here, Sean. They've beaten some pretty good teams. They won an event in, the Pacific Asias for sure. Got to the final of semifinal in Moose Jaw. No, Lloydminster. Sorry,
those are totally different places. How dare you, sir?
Pretty much the same. Lost the championship final in Moose Jaw. So they've played a lot of teams and they've beaten a lot of good teams. They've beaten Kovaleva. They've beaten Daniela Jensch. So I'm excited to see them.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to see how they stack up with the rest of the field. Another team that'll be fun to see how they stack up. Another Pacific Asia team, the Korean team, skipped by Un-Chi Kim. This team is new to the scene. Last year, of course, we had Minji Kim, that junior team that really burst onto the scene after the other team, Kim, went through their situation, including a birth for the skip there, giving birth after the Olympic Games there in 2018. So a new representative for the Korean side coming into this, and it's got another young team that will be looking to make a statement.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to find some statistics on this team here because it seems like Curling Zone seems to be a bit mixed up with this team. So I don't know too much about their records so far this year based on the missing information, but the Koreans are always sending teams that are capable.
Yeah.
And I'm never surprised, no matter which team shows up, to see them up there in the playoff picture. This year, we'll see, right?
Yeah, we just don't know.
Either way, I wouldn't be surprised.
I would be, I think. If you're looking at this particular tier of the event, given how well Tabitha Peterson has been playing, the next team that we're going to talk about in this tier, and then the 6 teams that we have in our top tier, I think it could be a struggle. I think also for the Chinese team, whenever you have teams, first time, it can be tough in these settings, and I know that there are cameras at the Pacific Asia Championship. I know that they're, playing really good teams on tour. I get that, but there is something, we talk about it with the Scotties, and I think it's the same will be true at World Championships, that, it's different when the country is on your back and you see you're not up there as Team Kim, you're up there as Korea. Right? It could be a different thing. So I'm curious to see how they respond to that and how it goes for the squad.
Yeah, and coached by Peter Gallant, I believe, Canadian coach. He'll have them ready to go, and they're no stranger to Canada. They've played lots of spiels here, so
Yep.
yeah, nothing more to add.
All right, so the final team in this, you're that team from that place tier, the Czech Republic team, skipped by Anna Kubiskova.
Yeah, Anna Kubiskova, pretty familiar to all of us.
Yes.
48 games on the year, 21 wins, 27 losses.
That's not good.
So not great. Yeah, they have not played well. Even at the Euros, didn't they slip to the B by failing to qualify?
We'll check that.
Okay, we do research here. It was a long time at the Briar. Sean. I'm a little hungover from the Briar still, but yeah, they're a team that's like super talented, but never seem to live up to that talent, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They've been like that team that's coming for a while, and aren't quite able to make it over the top. 27% hammer efficiency is not going to get it done.
Not on this field.
And to be frank, maybe this team should have been the other team in the thanks for coming out.
Maybe. I just give them a little more credit because of the experience that they have.
But I think them and Danielle Jentsch are probably are very similar teams.
Maybe. Yeah, that's probably fair.
A good comp? Is that a good comp?
That's probably a pretty good comp, yeah.
They're another team that's given up more points than they've allowed.
Okay,
Or
so
allowed more than they've scored.
So Scott, they did not fall down in the European Championships. They went 3-6 there at the 2019
that's right.
European Championship. Of course, that's how they got into the field.
Right,
Of course.
my memory. How could I forget
yes.
that great celebration when they won their last game?
Yes, so 3-6 on the week there, which is of course how they get into the field here. So that is our middle tier, the You're That Team from That Place tier. And now Scott, our top tier, these are going to be the teams that you're all very familiar with. These are the teams that we think could threaten to win this, and we're calling this the Be Ready for HD division, because these teams are going to get a bunch of TV time. Of course, the team that's going to get the most TV time is the host from Canada. That's Carrie Anderson and her team from Manitoba that, of course, won the Scotties Tournament of Hearts just a few weeks ago. And first time for any of these players to be full field world champion at a world championship, because, of course, when Shannon Burchard won the Scotties with Jennifer Jones, she did not participate as the third in the world championship. Caitlin Laws, who was at the Olympics, came back in North Bay, played in that event. Shannon Burchard was there as the fifth. I believe she did get into a couple games, but she was not there as the full field participant. So that'll be her first time playing all the games at a world championship, and of course, first time for Carrie Anderson and Val being in the back end.
Yeah. This, I mean, we don't really have to say much more about this team. They're really good. They've done really well on tour, playing against most of these same teams. They shouldn't be intimidated by the moment. The crowds will likely be smaller than what was there for the Scotties. I think, given what happened to Team Canada last year and some of the social media outrage, for lack of a better word, that came out, I think they'll be prepared for kind of anything, and I hope that a lot of people will have learned their lesson from last year and not,
Hopefully.
not yell at them if they don't do well. It's their first time there, but at the same time, they're really good.
Yeah.
I think last year Chelsea Carey's team kind of caught lightning in a bottle for a bit, and we've seen Chelsea Carey be up and down in her career. This team, the same thing. Like, we've seen Carrie Anderson be pretty up and down in her career, but the way she got locked in there at the Scotties, it seems to me like it's sustainable, and they should be a podium favorite for this event.
Yeah, the only thing is, we talked about it with the Korean team. I think it holds even more so for Canada, because all the players talk about it, that when you finally win, and I say finally as if like it took her a long time. It didn't take her a long time. But when you finally break through and achieve that goal, and then you get those jackets that have the maple leaf on it, and the brooms that say Team Canada.
Yep.
Right? There's something in that moment for the players when they describe it, how cool it is, how much fun it is. But then at the same time, you look at the jacket and you're like, this is pretty cool, and then you put it on and you're like, oh my god.
Right.
Like the maple leaf turns into a target almost, as people are going to give you their best game, which is great. You want that. I think you want that weight of expectation, because that means that if you're representing this place, that means you're pretty damn good, because you've gotten through everybody else
Sure.
to get to this point. But people have talked about it being a bit of a burden, and we'll see how they react to it. I have a lot of confidence in this team not to be shook by anything. If you look at their schedule, I don't know if the schedule makers did them any favors. They get Eve Muirhead right at the chute on Saturday night. And, if you look at some of the quote-unquote easier games, right, the games that they should win against the weaker teams, at least on order of merit, they come a little later in the week. Mm-hmm. So if they get off to a 2-2, 2-3 sort of start, that's okay, because they should be able to make up games later in the week. Mm-hmm. With this format, though, you want to get in one of the 1-2 slots, get a spot right in that semifinal. So you can't afford to give too many away. But certainly a playoff team, I think for sure, and be very surprised if that's not the case.
Yeah, you're right. It shouldn't be a shock to anybody that we're high on this team. They're good. That's all I can say.
Okay.
So I'm glad people downloaded the show and listened to our expert analysis.
So the next team on this Be Ready for HD that I have is the Japanese team skipped by Satsuki Fujisawa. The most fun team on tour? I don't know, at least the smiliest team on tour. Really a lot of fun to watch them. I know every time we talk about them, we talk about how much fun they are to watch, but also serious contenders to certainly make the playoffs, and they're going to give anybody who they come up against a run in a playoff game.
Yeah, they're winning at a 70% clip this year. We saw them win many games with only 3 people there at the Boost National before Christmas. Shout out to Boost.
I need a boost.
Yeah.
I can't shake this cough.
Oh boy, you sure do. Yeah, like you say, they're fun to watch. They put a lot of rocks in play. They're not afraid to mess to like get things going, like rumble early. They score a lot of points. They give up a lot of points. 41% hammer efficiency is really good, really good. Yeah, I think they're definitely one of those teams that you expect to see at the end. I could see them stubbing their toe a bit, though, and not having as much success at this event. I'm not sure why I think that, but I could see it.
Okay, interesting.
They close with Scotland and Sweden.
So if they need one at the end, that's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough, yeah.
So let's move on to one of the teams you just mentioned. Definitely a contender to win a world championship because, well, that's the only thing that she hasn't done. That's Anna Hasselborg.
Ah.
And the Swedish team, she's won everything else this sport has to offer, but that world championship has eluded her to this point. Olympic gold medalist, and last year, game of the year in curling overall. If you take calendar 2019 and you gave me one game that I could watch, I'm picking the women's world championship final, where Silvana Tirinzoni came out and played. They just played out of their head to win. They're not there this year. We'll talk about that. But this team, Scott, has been so good for the past 3 years, and it's sort of like what we talked about with Gushu, where for a long time he just wanted to win the Brier and didn't care about the Olympics as much. For her, Anna Hasselborg, it's like she just needs that world championship to cap off the career resume.
Yeah, and I mean,
She'll win one.
what are we gonna do? Sit here and nitpick Anna Hasselborg's team? 53-9 on the year.
They've lost 9 games.
They're like the Milwaukee Bucks of curling. Scoring over 9 points a game and giving up just over 5. They have a 51% hammer efficiency, highest in the field. 66% force efficiency. Combine those numbers, they're insanely good.
Yeah. Now, some of those numbers, of course, do come from the Swedish nationals, where nobody can hold a candle to them.
No.
Where they're going to rack up big numbers for sure. But still, they've played in all the Grand Slams, and they've lost 9 games.
They did lose one game in the Swedish nationals
Was everybody sick?
to Sundberg, 7-3,
Huh.
who they then beat in the final 8-3.
Okay.
So
So just teasing them.
yeah, they said, "Oh, you think you can win one? Sure,
Yeah.
here you go."
Anna Hasselborg was actually sliding out of the hack backwards in that first game.
Yeah.
Putting it through her legs.
Yeah. She was doing the spinorama shot too.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm going to pick this team to win, Sean. Spoiler alert.
Okay.
But yeah, they're really good.
All right, so let's move on then to the Scottish team. This is Eve Muirhead making her return to the World Championship. Of course, last year, Sophie Jackson represented Scotland after winning the national championship. A bit of a controversy over that because the Scottish Federation initially said that, well, you're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
So eventually cooler heads prevailed. I think the right decision was made, and Sophie Jackson played in the World Championship. This year, Eve Muirhead wins the Scottish Championship and is back at a Worlds for the first time in a couple of years. Fully healthy from all accounts. The hip issue that bothered her for the past couple of years hopefully is in the rear view mirror. She's looked healthier when we've seen her out on tour at the Grand Slams, and certainly a threat to win because she's done it before.
She is a world champion, 2013?
13, yeah.
Yeah. Different team this time than that 2013 team. I think the way this team is put together this year is really working for them. Having Lauren Gray move from lead position up to the 3rd position. We saw last year she was the 5th for Sophie Jackson in the World Championships and actually skipped a couple games when Sophie was injured.
Yeah.
And she's got such a great feel for the game. She's such a good player. And Eve trusts her. And last year, with Jen Dodds coming onto the team to throw third rocks, I felt like Eve didn't always know where to put the broom for her. There was a learning curve to how they play together. I think this year, with Lauren playing third, Lauren in the house, of course last year Vicky was in the house.
Yep.
So the way that the team dynamics are sort of working is working for them. Second at the Euros this year, had a really great game. It was a crazy shot that Anna Hasselborg made to beat her. I really like how they're playing. 46% hammer efficiency, I like that. And they're another one of my contenders for the first place spot.
Yeah, it's really nice to see Eve Muirhead healthy again. She really went through it there with the injuries, in the lead up to the Olympics and then during the Olympics. So, it's good to see her healthy, rounding into form as, we're just 2 years away from the Olympic Games there in Beijing, or at least the scheduled Olympics in Beijing. So it's nice to see them rounding into form, and hopefully she can stay healthy for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So next up is the Swiss team. This is not your defending world champion, Silvana Tirinzoni. Of course, where Elena Pats was throwing the 4 stones and just playing out of her head last year. No. This year, it is Elena Stern and her team. Elena Stern skips 4 stones thrown by Briar Hurleman. And so this team, we've seen them on tour. They've represented Switzerland at World Juniors before. They've had some success at the slam level. I think they're probably a little upset that Rachel Holman did not win the final because that was basically a guaranteed win for them.
Right.
In this field, the way it's gone this season, she
Yeah.
just has beaten Rachel Homan at least 4 times so far in the season. But a really good up-and-coming team, and another team, Scott, in this seemingly endless succession of Swiss women's teams that are just really good.
Yeah, 3-1 this year against Rachel Homan.
It's pretty good.
That's
That's better than I could do against Rachel Homan.
Yeah, it's much better. Obviously, this team is maybe a couple years ahead of schedule. That with the Tiranzoni team still being higher in the order of merit, probably the better overall team. But in Canada, probably Rachel Homan was better overall and lost the final. So. They're new on the world scene. They're not going to be afraid. Like you mentioned, they go to the slams. They're regularly in Canada. They know they can beat most of the teams here. It's just a matter of putting it into place at this kind of an event, right? So it'll be a learning experience for them. Playoffs are likely.
Yeah, I think so.
I might. This might be the team that I would swap out for Tabitha Peterson's U.S. rink.
Okay, and that's probably fair. First time, but again, that Swiss lineage is really quite remarkable. Just the quality of teams that they turn out on the women's side. So let's get to the final team in the field, the 13th and final team, and this team that, Scott, just before we started to record, you made me put into this ready for HD pool because we wanted 6 teams in there. We wanted 6 playoff teams. So it's the Russian team, skipped by Alina Kovaleva. Of course, they won the Russian championships, the nationals, which is a best-of-7 series, and they came out on top there. So they will represent Russia once again. And Scott, a team that has been a threat at these in the past, has made the playoffs, had some pretty good runs, but I don't know if I really see them as a legitimate title contender.
Yeah, they're the kind of team to me that can get hot and get on a winning streak. And if they're able to do that this week in Prince George, they'll be in the title contention, not just playoff contention. But you're right, they are also streaky the other way. Yeah. And I could see it going the other way. The number I don't like, the hammer efficiency here, is down at 38%.
Yeah, that's too low.
So, not ideal, right? And yeah, it's a best of 7 to get out of Russia. Anna Sidorova is not what she was. They won 4-1 this year. I believe they won 4 matches to 1 last year as well.
Yeah.
To get in.
Now,
so
one of them that they won did come down to the last rock, but 4-1 is pretty thorough.
Yeah, pretty thorough. That said, they do go out on tour a lot, less this year than they did last year. But they've made playoffs, made quarters, made semis at different spiels. 57 wins, 20 losses on the year. I made you put them in this tier because I think that it's possible that they make the playoffs. I would still put them ahead of Elena Stern.
Okay, I think that's. We'll see when we get to the picks how fair I think that is, but you're leaning in that case more on the experience than necessarily on the absolute ceiling.
Sure.
Of what we've seen from the team.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
So that'll do. That'll be the 13 teams heading to Prince George. So Scott, let's move on to our picks, where as normal, you pick 4 teams, you pick a winner, 5 possible points. You get a point for each team that makes the playoffs, an extra point for picking the champion correctly. We did not summarize our picks from the Brier, which I understand why you did that, because I beat you with the picks from the Brier. So do we have an update on where we stand for the season?
No, we don't, because I haven't listened back to our old podcasts.
Right. So that just means that I'm in the lead again. So that's really what is a sign of.
Yeah,
so,
I'm just not eager to get listening to that.
So let's get into it for the women's. I've written mine down, Scott, if you want me to go first. But of course, I don't want you to accuse me of copying you.
Yeah, I do want
some
you
sort of
to.
Strategic move.
Well, I want you to go first.
Okay.
And you've pulled out your paper. Good.
I have. So the 4 teams that I'm picking to make the playoffs, I'm going to pick the Swiss, the Swedes, the Scots, and the Canadians.
Oh, you've got the S's and the C.
Yes. Okay. And you know what, Scott? I'm going to go a little off the board. A team that you're not clearly very high on.
Oh.
I'm going with Elena Stern to win because, Scott, they're going to win one at some point because that's what Swiss women's teams do. They win world championships. So why not this one?
That's insane, Sean. You're insane. You've made insane picks. And I'm really happy that I'm going to beat you. I'm going to pick Anna Hasselberg to win. Like I said, they're very good. Give me Team Canada to make it back to the playoffs this year. I think they're going to do it. I want to take what other teams are there?
All the teams.
Again, let me look at who's in the field. Scotland and Eve Muirhead. Yeah, I'm going to take her. Obviously, and then I'm gonna go out on a limb. Well, not really. I'm gonna take Japan and Fujisawa.
Okay.
Your handwriting is terrible.
I can read it.
I guess is what matters, right?
Yeah.
So we've got like a couple of different picks there. Your winner pick I don't even have making the playoffs. Which probably bodes well for them because as I didn't pick Brad Gushu to make the playoffs at the Brier, Sean.
No, you didn't.
What an idiot. What was I thinking?
He's your 2020 men's national champion.
Yeah, so what a real dope I am.
Yeah, so those are our picks. If you're in Canada, all the games that Canada plays are available on TSN, as well as the playoffs and the finals. If you're international, the World Curling Federation is streaming a bunch of games, including those TSN games. From what I gather, if you're outside Canada, you can have access to all the TSN games in addition to some WCF. They're going to be at least streaming one game per draw. And when TSN is on the air, they'll be doing 2. So
right.
Everyone, you'll have access to something. If you're in the United States, of course, ESPN3 does have the rights to the TSN curling coverage, so you can watch all the Team Canada games there.
Right, and I assume we'll be able to watch the non-TSN broadcast draws on YouTube as well.
I would assume so. So that's what's going on. One other note that's mildly related to the World Championship, Bidia Felcher, speaking of Swiss World Champions, announced her retirement from curling over the course of the past week. So I don't know if that's a surprise or not, but just something to note there that we're losing Bidia Felcher from the world of curling. Great career, world champion.
Yeah, absolutely great career. Really, really storied and going to be a loss for Swiss curling for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of sad that we weren't able to do this, Sean, on International Women's Day.
Yes, we missed it.
Which was the last day of the Brier, unfortunately. But it's always fun to talk about women's curling and women's sports in general. I saw that CBC is going to do like a top 10 women's sports highlights.
Nice.
Every month. Maybe it's top 30, I don't know. But some sort of thing focusing on women's sports, which is great because I believe we watched like the TSN top 100 plays and only 2 of them were women's stuff.
Yeah, something crazy.
And it was like, come on, really?
Yeah.
And no curling, so.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I think, when you're talking about women's sports and sort of the emergence of women's sports, so I would say over the past 10 years where it's gotten more and more coverage, curling really has been at the forefront of it. Equal coverage of world championships and national championships, at least at the Canadian level. It took a long time to get to the money parity, but they got there this year. And, these athletes that we get to watch are really just incredible, and the stuff that goes on. I say it all the time that the Scotties is my favorite event of the season, and it's just a great opportunity. I remember Colleen Jones, when they separated out the World Championship, of course it used to be one big event. Colleen Jones openly wondered at the time, like, will this mean the death of women's curling, of women's international curling? And certainly that hasn't been the case, and I do think it's helped that you get this platform for the women's game to really show how good it is without all the noise of the men's game
right
around it.
And I kind of like there's countries where they do play them together, like in the U.S., for example, and around the provinces, right? They play the women's and men's provincials at the same time.
Yeah, just don't put the women's final Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, you're right. Sherry Anderson has some beef, justifiably. But at those events where they are together, I think it does provide some additional exposure for the women's game at that level, right? And then in Canada, they've got like a whole week, however many hours that TSN's broadcasting, like 300 hours of women's curling. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Really, really great. And that's your International Women's Day update from two white guys.
There you go. So enjoy the curling. We'll be off. We'll talk about it on Twitter. We'll be on social media. But we will not have another episode, at least scheduled, until the end of the event.
Yeah, maybe if Canada
if something
goes
crazy,
0-10 to start or something.
If something crazy happens, we'll do a quick episode, or if there's some news that comes out of the World Championship or just in the world of curling in general. We might do a quick episode, but the schedule or the plan right now is the Sunday night after the final of the Women's World Curling Championship. We'll do a full rundown of the events and talk about the final. Hopefully it's as good as last year's final, although that's a pretty high measuring bar to get to. But that's the schedule that we'll go with right now. And to make sure you get that episode, please do subscribe to the show wherever it is you get your shows, Apple, Google, Spotify, all the places, likes, rates, all that stuff. You can follow us on social media, on Instagram and Twitter at Game of Stones Pod. You can email the show, as always, gameofstonespodcast@gmail.com. So we will be back with you next week to talk about all the goings-ons from out there in Prince George. But until then, keep your brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.